you're considering a move to the Santa Cruz County area and you feel like you just can't afford what you want, there is a saying that says, drive a little, save a lot. And so today we are going to be exploring the pros and the cons of living in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And that's in the San Lorenzo Valley, and it's inclusive of Felton, Boulder Creek, and Ben Lomond. So stay tuned if you are considering a move to the Santa Cruz area and you want something that is a bit more rural and a bit more affordable, and if you're willing to drive a little, you can potentially save a lot. I'm Shamika Fox, your Santa Cruz real estate expert and your personalized real estate concierge. And if you're just tuning in, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. And every time somebody hits that subscribe button or rings that bell, it helps us reach our goal. So today, let's dive into the pros and cons of living in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Okay, let's start off with what we always start off with, the pros and cons of the cost of living. The pro of the cost of living, if you are willing to drive a little, you can save a lot. You can actually purchase a home in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains, Felton, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, where the median price for that area is coming in at $755,000 right now when this video is recorded in May of 2025, in comparison to the Santa Cruz median price, which is at $1,400,000. So obviously, if you're closer to the beach, you're going to pay more to live closer to the beach. But if you're willing to drive up to a little bit more rural of an area, the Santa Cruz Mountains is a really good option for you. That said, if you like rural living and you are willing to drive a little bit for the conveniences, then another pro of living in the San Lorenzo Valley is you can get more for your money. You can get privacy, you can get acreage, you can get a larger house than what you would potentially be able to afford in the city of Santa Cruz or in an area within Santa Cruz that is closer to the beach. The con is the cost of living in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains is higher than the national average. So even though it's lower than our area, it is more expensive to live in the San Lorenzo Valley than it is to live in other places in the country. According to the current cost of living index, it costs 169%. That's 69% higher than the national average to live in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains area, Ben Lomond, Felton, Boulder Creek. Other living expenses that I would consider a con with regards to the cost of living is there are higher utility bills. So if you're living in the San Lorenzo Valley, chances are that you are on a septic system. If you have a new enhanced engineered septic system, those systems have to be monitored and inspected on a biannual basis, and there is a cost associated with that. If you have an older system that is not an enhanced engineered system, you might get away with paying less than a biannual required inspection fee, but every time you need your system to be pumped and inspected, there is a cost associated with that. Also, there is a higher cost of living with regards to utilities such as water. San Lorenzo Valley is 45% higher than the national average with regards to its utility fees. There's many factors that come into play with that. The San Lorenzo Valley water is one factor, but also being that you are probably, since it's rural, on propane, and propane tends to be a higher cost than if you were to get service like PG&E. A lot of the rural properties are tree covered, so there's not always an opportunity to add something like solar that could potentially bring the cost of your utilities down. Sometimes there are, depending on the property that you purchase or the property that you own and live in, but not always because there is a dense tree covering in that area. Transportation expenses are 38% higher than the national average. Groceries are 16% higher than the national average, and healthcare costs in the San Lorenzo Valley are 22% higher than the national average. Let's also stop for a minute and talk about healthcare and accessibility. Because this is a rural area and you have to commute without traffic about 15 to 20 minutes to get into Scotts Valley would be your next nearest hub. the chances of having accessibility to a nearby medical facility are it's less available. So you'd have to go to Scotts Valley or to Santa Cruz in order to get to a medical facility and or nearest hospital, which would be Dominican Hospital. The pros and cons of education in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains. The pro is it's a small community. So in my experience with small communities, a lot of times you will have a tighter knit community. People bond together for the common good. With regards to the education, there's one campus for the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. And I would say this is a pro and a con, but the pro is that if you are a parent dropping off your children and you have multiple age range differences in your family, you just have to drop them off at one spot. Also, if your kids get along, they'll be on the same campus for the entirety of their education if they choose to attend the public school in San Lorenzo Valley. The other pro about it, I would say, is that they get very comfortable and very familiar with the campus. So it's not like every time they go from elementary to middle school to high school, they have to relearn the system and how the campus works. So that would be a pro. The con is that really is your only option if you wanted to go the public school route in the San Lorenzo Valley. There's just the one campus for the high school, middle school, and elementary school. The high school does get, and this is in the pro section, the high school does get a pretty decent rating on greatschools.org, coming in at 8 out of 10. The middle school, it comes in mid-range, coming in at 5 out of 10. And the elementary school comes in just below mid-range at 4 out of 10. Another con is if you want your child to attend a different school, you'd have to do an interdistrict transfer for public schools, or if you wanted them to go to a private school, most other private schools are not in the San Lorenzo Valley, so you would have to commute in order to get them to that other school. Job opportunities, pros and cons in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountain area. Again, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, or Felton. The pros are there are a plethora of job opportunities, including environmental health. If you wanted to do work in the environmental sector, there is obviously real estate up there. There is public service jobs. There are jobs in the education field. So there are opportunities as far as employment goes. The cons are there's not a ton of opportunities as far as job opportunities goes because it is a smaller community. Generally speaking, there's a limited job market diversity. The San Lorenzo Valley's economy is driven mostly by education, public utilities, and small local businesses. The jobs in the San Lorenzo Valley, these are the cons. Remember, the jobs that are available in the San Lorenzo Valley tend to be lower paying jobs than other areas in Santa Cruz and or outside of Santa Cruz. There is limited career advancement, meaning if you have a job in, let's say, education, you're a teacher, it's going to be hard to climb the corporate ladder within that structure because there's not a lot of new opportunities. Another challenge within the San Lorenzo Valley is transportation. We do have the Metro bus, but that is the only form of public transportation. So if you rely on the Metro in order to get to your job, it's going to take longer to get there because the Metro only runs every so often and you would be reliant specifically on the Metro to get you to your job. Another con is economic vulnerability. The San Lorenzo Valley's economy is susceptible to disruptions from natural disasters, which we've seen, such as wildfires, floods, landslides. All of these natural disasters can lead to damage on infrastructures, which could and have caused major impact on local businesses. These events can lead to temporary job loss and even potentially businesses going out of business completely. The other factor with regards to the con in the job sector portion of this video is that there is seasonal employment fluctuation. So if you are in the hospitality industry, then you're going to have a tremendous amount of work during the summer months, but then once we head into the fall, a little bit of fluctuation in the spring, but fall and winter, most of those jobs will decrease significantly because we don't see a lot of tourism and travel in the off season. If you're just tuning in, I'm Shamika Fox, your Santa Cruz real estate expert, and I'm so excited about this channel. I've just started putting a tremendous amount of effort in it and hopefully doing it the right way to hit all those right algorithms. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So excuse this commercial interruption, but if you'd hit that like and subscribe button for me, I'd be greatly appreciated. All right, back to our previously recorded show. Crime. This is an interesting one. The pros of crime in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains, based on several discussions with friends who live up there, is that they feel really safe. They leave their doors open, they can go to their neighbors' houses, and they feel like it is a tight-knit community and people have each other's backs and they watch out for each other. The cons, and this is very interesting, there is actually a history of violent crime. In fact, in the 70s, Santa Cruz, and specifically the San Lorenzo Valley, was known to be the murder capital of the world, and they were finding serial killers, they were finding dead bodies, and found all kinds of evidence that led to people who were from the San Lorenzo Valley that were murdering other people. They have uncovered bodies in Henry Cowell State Park. Most recently, we just heard of a double homicide, and the victims were found in Boulder Creek, and the alleged murderer was also found in Boulder Creek. If you want more information on that news story, comment below and I'll send you a link. I am by no means an investigator or on the police force. I could just get my information from the regular news, but that was a new newsworthy story with a double homicide, and both of the victims were found in Boulder Creek, and then the alleged murderer also found in Boulder Creek. So there you have it, the pros and cons of crime in the San Lorenzo Valley or the Santa Cruz Mountains. Traffic, the pros and cons of traffic in the San Lorenzo Valley and the Santa Cruz Mountains. The pros, I would say, is it is so beautiful up there. Just driving through the redwoods, you just get a sense of serenity, peace, calmness. It's just so pretty with all the mountains around you. The cons are there's really mainly only one main road in and one main road out. That's Highway 9. So if there's a tree down or a traffic jam, there's not a lot of opportunities to shift and change and go in a different direction. If you live in Boulder Creek and you're trying to commute to, say, the Silicon Valley, you can take Bear Creek over. That will get you there, though it's a really windy road. Or you can take Highway 9 to Highway 35, and that will also get you there, though it is also a windy road. So it depends on where the road closure is as to how you will or won't get out. I know a lot of people who travel up in the San Lorenzo Valley area, they carry a chainsaw with them in their car or their truck. So if there is a road that is closed due to a fallen tree, they have the ability to open that up if they have the skills to work the chainsaw and the strength to move the tree. I don't know. It's a little past my capabilities. I think I would just feel a little stranded. I also know from some clients who live up in the Ben Lomond area that during the school traffic, it can just congest the entire highway and you'll be stuck potentially for like 20-30 minutes in the same spot while people are dropping their kids off and while there's a lot of extra traffic during that time. And again, the con, we've talked about this before, but another con about the traffic in the San Lorenzo Valley, Santa Cruz Mountains area is that there's not a lot of public transportation. So besides the metro system, you don't have a lot of opportunity to maybe utilize a public transportation system. Pros and cons of weather in the San Lorenzo Valley. The pro is that the weather breeds the most beautiful redwood forests. It was once known to be a rainforest. Over the change or course of climate change, it is no longer considered a rainforest, though they do get more rain than other places in Santa Cruz County. But what you get up there because of the weather and the climate is massive, and I'm saying massive redwood trees. If you've never been to Henry Cowell State Park, go up there. If you've never been to Big Basin, go up there. It is absolutely stunning, though Big Basin was hit quite hard with the CZU fires, so that area has been impacted. But the San Lorenzo Valley area has some of the largest, if not the largest, redwood trees in all of America, which is pretty darn cool. The cons about the weather in the San Lorenzo Valley area: it does get hotter than other places in Santa Cruz County. Again, I don't mind the heat, so it doesn't affect me as much, but there's not a lot of air conditionings so far. I would imagine if we keep seeing climate change and our area keeps heating up, we might start to see more people start to install air conditioning units. But if it does get hot, there is a beautiful San Lorenzo River, and there's areas and swimming holes that you can go and cool off in. And also, of course, Santa Cruz and the beach is not that far away. Oh, the other thing I would say about the cons with regards to the weather and what is customarily known to be available as far as housing in the San Lorenzo Valley is that, now, again, we have new construction, we have remodeled construction, but the original San Lorenzo Valley area was the home for many hunting cabins. And these hunting cabins were very minimalist. They did not have insulation. They were built in the early 1900s as vacation cabins for people coming from the San Francisco area. And they would use them literally as hunting cabins. So you would bring your bedding or whatever, sleep on a cot, throw on a pot of coffee, do your hunting, and hang out in the rural country, and then go back to the city once you were done spending the time in the San Lorenzo Valley. So I would say that that is a con with regards to the weather and just being comfortable in your own environment. Pros and cons of the geography when it comes to the San Lorenzo Valley, Santa Cruz Mountains area. The pros are that it is beautiful. You have hiking trails, you have mountains, you have redwood trees, the biggest redwood trees. You have the San Lorenzo River that you can swim in. You have a diverse array of options when it comes to your general landscape of different types of property. So there are mountainous properties that have tons of trees, are built on a hillside, but there's also properties that you could get that are flat and sunny and have less tree coverage. So that is also another pro of the geography of the San Lorenzo Valley. The cons are that there's limited road access. Again, the main road is Highway 9. If that's closed, you're kind of in trouble. But also another con is you're pretty far removed from the quote unquote conveniences of urban living. You are about 15 minutes from Scotts Valley, depending on traffic. If you live in Felton, you're about 30 to 45 minutes depending on where you're at in Boulder Creek, if you live in Boulder Creek, and Ben Lomond is somewhere in between. Another con of the San Lorenzo Valley and the geography is because of the geography, we have suffered environmental impacts such as the CZU fires that wiped out a tremendous number of homes. It wiped out a tremendous amount of trees. It was a real huge devastation to this area, and as a result, it is really challenging to get insurance that is affordable. So the affordability factor for insurance, though it may be more affordable to purchase a home in the San Lorenzo Valley, the cost of insurance impacts that affordability. And then again, the septic system. Most properties up there, if not all properties that are up there, are on a septic system. Pros and cons of entertainment in the San Lorenzo Valley, Santa Cruz Mountain area, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, Felton. The pros are that even for a quaint small town, there's music venues, there's things to do, there's wine tasting and wineries, there is the Mount Herman adventures if you want to go on a ropes course, there's outdoor entertainment. So you can go hiking, you can go biking, you can go to the river. If you are looking for a real urban lifestyle, this is not going to be the place for you. Though there are options. There's bars, there's restaurants, there's shopping, there's dining, there's all that stuff. It is smaller and it is quainter. My favorite bar actually in the area is Monty's Log Cabin. It's an old school cabin. It's right across from Henry Cowell. It's just like a cool dive bar. There's like interesting artifacts or art on the wall. It's just a fun place to hang out and go have a drink after you've gone on a nice hike in Henry Cowell. Also, there's hen flings. There is a rumor that Sasquatch is from the area, so keep your eye open for Bigfoot or Sasquatch. There is Bigfoot Museum, which used to be right next door to Monty's Log Cabin, though I heard that recently that the Bigfoot Museum, which was for sale, burned down. So that's kind of interesting. For lifestyle, the pros are if you're into being outside and being immersed in nature and enjoying a chill kickback lifestyle, and you love gardening or farming or really taking care of your property, this lifestyle could be a really good fit for you. A con is that you're in a rural lifestyle. So if you don't want to be immersed in nature and you don't want to take care of your property and you don't want to get your hands in the dirt and get dirty and do all these like outdoorsy things, this might not be the right lifestyle for you. Pros and cons of unique features of the San Lorenzo Valley. A pro is there is always some interesting folklore that goes on with regards to the San Lorenzo Valley and Santa Cruz Mountains. The folklore, folk tale about Bigfoot is very interesting. That would be a pro to me because I find that all very amusing and entertaining. There's a lot of stories about the history of the Brookdale Lodge. The story that I remember being the most prevalent is that there was a young girl who choked on a hot dog and ended up drowning because there's a stream that goes through the Brookdale Lodge, which if you haven't been to the Brookdale Lodge, you should check it out. It's a very cool historical property. The architecture is interesting. The dining room is interesting. It's just like a fun place to go check out. But that she is still haunting the Brookdale Lodge and that area. And in fact, my husband, Danny, was doing a project up there, not at the Brookdale Lodge, but right around the corner from the Brookdale Lodge. And he swears the house was haunted. He was in there and he was listening to the Giants game. And all of a sudden, the radio, without anybody touching it, switched on to old music. And when he went to turn the lights off at the end, the lights shut off before he could touch the switch, and it was those old school push button switches, and he actually saw it go in. So I don't know if it's actually haunted, but I do believe it could very well be. So I would say that even though that could be kind of scary and considered a con, just having those folklore stories that transition from one generation to the next is very interesting to me. Cons would be that it is known to be like have some violent crimes, and like historically has had Hell's Angels live up there and has had some murder, serial killer history, which again is very unique feature of an area to live in, but also kind of interesting, if I'm allowed to say that on TV. Anyways, if you are considering a move to the Santa Cruz area and you want something that might be a bit more rural, drive a little, save a lot, you can get more for your money, check out the San Lorenzo Valley, Santa Cruz Mountains area, Felton, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek. You can definitely get more for your money up there. Make sure you watch this video in its entirety so you can hear the complete pros and cons of living in the Santa Cruz Mountain area. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2025, and I so appreciate everybody who takes the time to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Shamika Fox, your Santa Cruz real estate expert, and until next time, make it a great day.